This is the complete tutorial on how to build a full stack app just using AI in under 30 minutes. Starting with step 1, building the front end with bolt.new. I have a prompt here that I'm going to use, and what I want to create is a movie recommendation site. Now, given that this is a full stack application, in the backend, once we get there, we will be using Weaviate and using RAG and CrewAI. So we'll get to there, but first we need the front end. And what I'm going to have here is just a simple prompt, and I'll have this in the description, so you can just copy this. But once I have this here, go ahead and execute this, and it's going to build all of this for me. So I'm just going to be talking while this is happening. I don't want it to. I want to let it know that I will have a Flask application in the background as the back end. So just have some sample data for now in the front end. And as you can see, it's go ahead and it's executing all. Well, it's not executing the code yet. It's creating all the code. TSX again, I think it's just TypeScript, React. But over here, it's telling me how it's handling everything. Here we have something, right? Let's make sure this works. Oh, wait, is this? Okay, so it's. Okay, so that's the first thing, right? So let's just say it's gonna have sample data. So let's just press enter, and it does. Okay, cool. So I mean, that took a minute. I don't even know if that took like a minute. Maybe just about a minute. But I'm sure that if I just put it in text here, it's gonna like the same thing. Okay, so this is kind of the idea that I want, right? I'm going to type something in here, and whatever. I want to do history. I want to do something, maybe movies with red, horror, whatever it is. There's going to be a RAG application in the background that is going to look for movies based on those things and then give me recommendations on similar ones. Okay, so we have a couple of things to fix here. What we need to fix is, first off, the font here. And then I think I also wanted to give me suggestions so that I can click on it just to kind of see how it works. And then also you'll probably want to click on each of these, and it gives you some sort of details about that movie. Let's run this. It's a good thing that I didn't actually have an error. It actually ran the first time. It doesn't always do that. I love this product. I really do, but it's still, not all these AI products are foolproof, right? They still have some errors. So I can already see that that's the image. Okay, well, it kind of went by there really far, but see, I don't want filters. I think it's trying to create filters, and that's not something I want. But we'll see. Maybe it's something that we would like, but it just wants to be suggestions. I may have to. Something that you can do with this, if you like the design of something, you actually take an image of that and then paste that in here and say, hey, this is actually what I wanted. Do it this way. And quickly, I have a school community where you can master CrewAI, and I'm updating this again every week. I have a no-code introduction using N8N and Make, and also a free gift when you join there because I combine CrewAI and N8N together. Okay, so if I click horror, okay, it comes up here. Action, it's gonna be the same thing, right? Drama. But I mean, actually, that's not bad. I think maybe just use the word filter. I didn't like too much. I should be able to click this and then it'll do something. Oh yeah, so I click on it, the year, the rating. This is how I searched for it, I guess. Computer programmer discovers. Yeah, cool. Okay, awesome. I kind of think this is really good for the front end because for this full stack application, I really want to show that you're just doing a simple search, right? The front end is going to seem simple, but when it gets to the back end, we have to set up the whole RAG application, and we have to set up a Flask application that connects to this first, and then set up the RAG, and then it's going to try to quickly retrieve these recommendations, send it back here, and then output those movies. So there's still quite a few things to do, but I think I like the way this looks. Yeah, these are for recommendations. I think I like the way this looks. So the next thing what I do with these is I say, hey, I want to run this locally. Can you give me all the steps to do this? So in the chat bar, I'm just going to say, I want to run this locally. What are all the steps I need to do this? Please give details. And so what's happening, and the reason why I'm doing this is, yes, you can ask it to create the Flask application or whatever you want to use as a backend here. But I'm going to move this to Cursor because with Cursor, it can really easily set this up for you in the back end, right? So if I want to connect this, I'm basically going to port this code over to a new project in Cursor, then set up the backend. But in order to set this up, I need to know the steps to do it. So this is kind of what it's doing, right? It's giving me the project setup. And so for step number 2, we are going to build the backend. Okay, so I'm in my Cursor ID, which is what I have been using now for quite a few months. I just created a new project. I activated my CrewAI course environment. And so now I'm ready to go, and we can just go ahead and go through the instructions from the front end on how to set this up. Right here are all the steps that I can install this locally. There are kind of 2 ways you can do this. What I would do is you're going to download this. You're going to download this whole code base. So if you go here to the code, has all the code that you need, right? What I kind of would do is you can go ahead and type this npm create all this stuff. So it's going to give you the folder structure. And then whenever you download this, right? So I just did this, right? If I come over here to Cursor, what you can do is you can take I downloaded the project, right? So project 2, I unzipped it. You can take all of these folders, because once you do the Vite create, so it's going to create this whole structure. You can take all these files and then just paste them inside of whatever you named. So I named the folder movie recommendations. I pasted it in here, and now everything is here. The only thing that you probably won't have that you need is you need to do these npm installs. So make sure that you do that. But after that, then everything is complete. I mean, these steps are good because the problem is it's only giving you like the actual code files, not the configuration files in this. So it's having you copy all the code files, but you still need to set up the configuration. But it's already set up here with the project. You don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to come down here to start the development server, which I did. If we come back to Cursor, so I did that, npm run dev. Now it created the local host. And if we go back to the local host, here it is. Here is the website, just like we had it. Just like we had it within bolt.new. Perfect. Now, what I need to do is set up a Flask server. And again, I'm going to do this in Cursor. So I'm basically going to do what I always do is I use the composer generally for like almost all the time. They have a chat, there's a chat that you can use as well. It just kind of, I don't know what it is for me. I just like opening up the composer. It works. I can just simply add the files here that I potentially want to mess around with, and that's fine. So this is what I'm going to do. I can give this as well so that you guys can have this. But basically what's happened is I just said I want to create a Flask backend. Right now I was using a sample movies. I want to give it the same like kind of movie steps. I want to do that and just return that from the backend instead of the sample movie recommendations that it's giving on the front end. So it created this. I don't know exactly how well this is going to work. This is all it did. So it created it updated the search bar as well. It's saying I do need to install these things, which I believe I do. And also, as a tip, you're going to get CORS errors more than likely, and it has to deal with that you're using the 5,000 local hosts. Just change that. So when you go to accept this, if you're using Flask, instead of 5,000, what's one that I know I'm not using? There we go, 5,111. I know I'm not using that for anything. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just do that. And I also need to split this terminal. I'm going to install the Flask. I'll install all the Flask stuff. Whoops, actually, no, I'm not here. I did not save the environment that I was using. So conda activate CrewAI course. So I'll make sure you're in the same environment. So I'm going to paste this pip install Flask course. I might actually already have it. Let me do an update. So you can say pip install -u Flask, then Flask -course. Make sure you have the newest updates, which I did not. Okay, cool. So we installed that. And then next thing we know is we need to say Python server py. I do not like that it is just kind of mixed in here. Yeah, I don't like that, but we can ask it to fix that in a minute. Python server.py. Let's make sure this runs. Okay, so now with this backend running, what should happen? And I know this is not going to quite work. For instance, these images aren't even real images, so it's not going to show anything. What I want to have happen is that we get whatever the query is from the search bar. It's going to come back here and it's going to return this. So how about we just do, how about we do a print f search query? So just we can kind of see what's happening. All right, let's move this. All right, so let's go back to the front end. Let's refresh this, start over, and this is just a test. Okay, it didn't detect the change, but it didn't, I feel like it didn't actually switch. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't switch I changed the local host, but I didn't change the property here. Okay, let's try it again. Did it update? I don't see. Let me just restart the front end. npm run dev. Now, whenever that's done, we're gonna come back here. Why did that? Did something break? Okay, let me inspect the console. Did something break? Search bar does not provide an export name search bar. Okay, I got back for the most part. What you need to do and what happened was with cursor, and this can happen, and I don't like it, but if you don't tell it to not change anything else, so I said, you know, I want you to fix this, but don't change anything else. And what happened was when I told to fix it, it changed how everything looked. I just didn't like that did that. So I try to always at the end say, hey, don't change anything else, just what I asked. Because it's got to look through a lot of stuff, and sometimes it just ends up fixing things that you don't want. So kind of glad that happened so I can show you. But here it is. Now, if I type feel good, whatever, you know, let me just reset that to make sure that the text thing works. So if I just type in whatever, it should also, okay, that didn't work. So we need to, so I got the search query. So I got the search query, but it's not returning for some reason. So what we can inspect here, maybe something is not being sent back properly, which is kind of what I'm guessing. Error fetching recommendations. What happened? The handle submit on search is not a function at handle submit. Okay, so we're gonna have it fix this. There are problems, right? This is just one of them. So it got here, but when I returned things into the search bar, this handle submit here, it didn't like that for some reason. I don't know why. Error fetching recommendations. Yeah, so let's fix this. I get this error in the search bar. The biggest problem is whenever you're creating these applications. Now, I have had times where I've had like no issues with this, right? It's just how some of it can be, right? Adding a state variable for, okay. I want you to fix the search bar.jsx file and nothing else, just fix the code. The biggest things that can happen here are like whenever you're connecting things together, that's always like the hardest part here. So let's just do accept all. Let's just see if that works. Let's refresh this. Hopefully that fixed it. So if we're typing something in, we got 2 back. Okay, cool. So this is good, right? We got 2 back. It's not showing it though. Why is that? And I think what it is, the backend changed up all of this stuff. So it has like nothing. So what we can do is we know somewhere here, the data. So this is the sample movies, right? This is, yeah. So it had a type movie. Okay. So here's what we need. I need to have it take in the exact same type, a list of movies with all of these, right? I don't necessarily have to have the ID, but I need to go ahead and have the title, year, post URL, description, rating, genre, and all that. So I want to have all of those together. So let's go ahead. I'm going to ask it to fix it so it uses this that it was using in the sample front end as the back end. So, I mean, it's fine. It's perfectly fine if you can do it with sample data for now. Let's go ahead and say, accept that. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and go back here, refresh the front end and see if that worked, if we can search for something. So let's search for this. Okay, it did. So it looks like we got the correct data, but it still didn't like it. Let's ask, it seems like there are no errors and we are giving the correct data to the front end. Can you fix this, please? What's going on? Don't change anything else. So let's see. I wonder if it's because it's looking for a certain type that it's not specifically getting what it needs, but we'll see. Okay, so I finally got it working where it's connecting the back end to the front end, I think what the issue is that the type that was coming from the back end to the front end, they weren't matching. So even though I ended up not getting any errors, it still wasn't displaying the movie title. So now if I just type in test, right, it doesn't matter what I do. It comes in here and displays everything properly now. So we got that. That really is the hard part. Connecting things together, I'm telling you, is the hard part. So in the back, I didn't want to record everything I was doing because it probably took me 15 minutes to ask Cursor, hey, this is not it. I need you to debug this and fix it. So it finally did. Now we have a working backend connecting to a front end. And again, how that is working is, let me close this. So we have our server. This is our server.py. Okay, we have one route, an API/recommendations that it created. We're getting the JSON from the request object from the front end. We're getting that. So in this case, my search query was test. That's what I put in the actual search bar. And then it's just returning sample movies. And the sample movies it's returning are just what we have hard coded here. Now, that really is the hard part because now all I really need to do is manipulate the data inside of this function, this get recommendation function. Now I can manipulate this data to do whatever I want to then send to the backend. So we're going to set up the RAG application and a crew to take that data and then actually give back the actual recommendations. And I'm going to set up a crew flow so that so it can give you a start on what I'm going to do with Weaviate, which we're going to use for the RAG. And I'm going to go through the documentation with you on that. And when you have a flow, when it goes through the flow, you can do more with that. I'm going to give you kind of the base of it doing the RAG application, and then you can also add more onto it as well, which is why I set it up this way. And now for step number 3, let's set up the RAG. Now, Weaviate, I don't know, for whatever reason, lately, actually for the past month or so, it's really come up on like LinkedIn, like any social media that I'm part of. I've seen Weaviate before, and I've seen actually people create some things with Weaviate and CrewAI, combining them together. So I thought I would do it. And whenever I tested it out, I really liked how quick the RAG was and how effective it was. And what I'm really going to show you is that it has a really simple multimodal RAG search. So not only, by the end of this, not only can you do a text, but we're also do an image search, then give us recommendations based on that. So what I'm going to do is go through this setup with you, and then I'm not going to code the whole thing together. I'm going to have some of it coded so that we can test it, then you can see how it works, and then we'll kind of just keep doing that until we're done with that. Then I'll show you the crew. So let's get started. Weaviate setup.py. You're going to create the collection, and then down here, you're going to run the create collection, and then you're going to populate Weaviate, and that's it. So we're going to go ahead and run these, and then we'll be back whenever they're done. Okay, so it finished. It loaded all 680 objects into the database. And if you have to rerun this, this code could be probably done a little bit better, but just comment out this create collection because it'll fail. That's trying to create the same collection again. But now let's do a test of an image search just so you kind of have an idea of how it works. And we're just going to test out this image search. So what I'm going to do is just go with this code real quick. So we basically create a client that connects to our local Docker container through the Weaviate library. We just need a way to convert a URL, which this is going to be an example image through text. We're just going to do this to a terminal to just show you how it works. We're going to convert that URL to base64, which we'll also do in the actual image search when I get to that code. We are going to get the collection, which is the movie for multimodal. Here is a sample. This is a sample piece it's a sample image of the International Space Station. So we should get movies back that are related or something similar to space, right? We get the image path. We convert to image B64. We say movies. So movies is that collection. .query.near image. Give it the image. I only want 5, and then these are the properties that I want to return from there. And here, all I'm doing is just printing those out. And then you have to close the client. All right, so the Weaviate client. And then all we're going to do now is just run this. So we're going to say Python Weaviate image _ test. Okay, cool. So here is Interstellar, Arrival, Gravity, Armageddon, and then The Dark Knight. I don't know if that has something to do with International Space Station, but it's like, this distance, this is kind of when I tried to search for like similar things using the image, this was the 5th best one that I found. So that's really awesome. This is how it works. But now what's going to happen is we want all this data, including the image and everything, to be sent back to the front end. But here is an example of how to do it with text. We would just say movies.query.nearText, and then instead of a near image property, it's called the property is called query, and this is like the text query that it can go to search for things in our movies multimodal vector database, right? So let's go ahead and we can comment this out. And now we're just going to text on history. So it should be things related to history. And okay, here we go. We got American History X 300. I mean, that does, I guess. Click, I Am Legend, and Troy. Okay, so I mean, you can kind of see how some of these are related to histories. I would imagine a lot of these are related to history. I Am Legend, probably because it might have legend in the name, so it thinks like something with history. But all right, regardless, awesome. We got results back. Okay, I'm going to lower this. And now the next thing that we need to do that I asked CrewAI to do is I basically needed to take the forms, the image, or the query from the front end. We need to retrieve those, which we kind of already saw that we got the text, but I needed it to also grab an image. So now what what I've had it added is there's this little button for image. So if you click this button, okay, so now whenever this opens up, you can then you can put in some image here. So here's the same. This is the same image, but it's the same International Space Station that we use as an example, but this is the actual image that I downloaded, and now I'm going to put it in those movie recommendations, and then we need to make sure that whenever we search this, whether there's text in here or not, or both, that it properly sends this to the backend. So I had it do that for me. I asked it to create this on the front end, and also make sure that you actually show the image so that we can have like feedback, like, oh, that is the image that I wanted. And then in the code here, I get the query, I get the image. So the query is from the form, the image is from the request.files. So if we don't get anything from the query, right? Like say we have an image, but we don't get anything from the query, it's just empty. So we have at least an empty string. And then we have results. And then if it's an image, then basically this is a very kind of crude setup, but if it's an image, then we're just going to go off the image, right? Otherwise, I haven't done this kickoff yet, which I'll show you, but we're basically going to, if it's just an image, then we're going to execute the Weaviate image search. Otherwise, if an image doesn't exist right here, we are going to we're going to execute the Weaviate text search. Okay, so basically it's just doing one of those two things. And then that's going to send all information. Once we get that from the RAG, we're going to send that back to the front end. However, you can see that I have this kickoff here. And what I've actually done is we are going to now implement the CrewAI part. Right, so we're going to have a crew flow. We are going to kick that off, and we're going to get the results from the front end, the image and the query, or one or the other. And then when we get those, we are going to send that off to the CrewAI flow, and then the flow is going to determine which depending on whether we have the image or the query or both, whatever that may be, it's going to determine which Weaviate function to execute, and then return the results back. So let's see how we do that. And for the last step, let's integrate CrewAI. And this isn't very complicated. So I'm in I am in a backend folder, right? So I created a backend folder. I have kind of my image search and my text search. I have like a test, and I have the setup here. And what we want to do is just create the flow. So you're going to say CrewAI create flow, and then you can name this whatever you want. I named mine movie recommendations. And you can see that it already created it here for me. So let's go into that. So we have this, we have the source file, and then if we go to the main, let me lower this terminal. So I kind of had this set up. It created this. Now let me explain what's actually happening here. So I created the flow, has the sample code. I'm not going to use a crew for this, although it is there, then you can do whatever you want with this, right? This is the basic setup. So I have the movie recommendations state where I have the image, the query, and the results. I have the flow here, which takes in that state. and I have one function here. So you have to have the start decorator here, so it knows that's going to use this, right? You have to have that start to go somewhere. So I have the retrieve movie recommendations. This is a Python function. So if there is a state, so if the state has an image, call the Weaviate image search. Otherwise, call the text search. And again, this can be modified to be kind of perform better, but otherwise it's just going to return the self.state results, right? So we're setting the results state to whichever one is actually being executed. So if you have an image and text, it's always going to use the image. If you have text and no image, it's going to use text, right? So it's just kind of like you can basically choose either or, even though you can put in both on the front end. If you have an image, it's going to overwrite that. So then I have a kickoff function, which takes in image path in a query. So you can see we still need the inputs, right? Again, this is how they set up the inputs to be used for a flow and a crew. So we have this input dictionary. I'm going to set the image B64 and the query to whatever we get from the front end, right? And we're calling this from the Python flask route. So you're thinking, so you might be asking like, so I create the flow, I instantiate the flow here, and I say movie recommendations.flow.kickoff. You don't need .crew.kickoff because it's not a crew. This is just a flow. So you say just .kickoff, and then the inputs are equal to whatever is given here. But what I'm immediately doing in the Python function for the start decorator is if there's a state of an image, go ahead and call the image search. Otherwise, just call the text search. Well, what's happening with, how is the state, like, how does it know it already exists? Well, when you call the kickoff and you have these inputs here, if these properties exist in the state that's inside the flow, it's going to auto-populate them before it runs the first Python function that is denoted with the @start decorator. So by the time it gets here, this state is already populated by whatever is given to the inputs of this kickoff. So the inputs are stated here. Whatever we get from the front end that's passed to the Flask route, then we come here, execute this, and then move on. So this is just a sample test that you can do if you just want to test this out. But so if we go back to server.py, the results are kickoff, and it's coming here. So if we have an image path and a query parameter, in case we get both, right? Well, this is kind of a crude way of doing it, but I want to pass the image and the query where the query can be empty. It absolutely can be empty. So if there's an image, it's just going to send both where the query can be empty or not, so it doesn't fail. And then otherwise, if there's basically no image, then we're still passing in a string. But when the kickoff here, basically we don't have an image. So because it's still, the first parameter is still expecting a string for the image path, basically, or for the image B64, then you just need to give it an empty string. And then we're giving it the query. So when it comes here to the kickoff, it's going to instantiate the inputs here, which will be a part of the parameter. Then we actually kick off the flow. And then in here, if it's just a text query, there's no image. Great, skip that, go to the else, and perform the Weaviate text search. That was a lot. And what this does is this sets you up, right? You'd actually do things before this with the image in the query, right? Like, let's say that you want to do both. You can first do an image search on the query, and then do a search on the text if they both exist. So you can have two different functions, combine those results together, and then send them back. And then maybe you can have a limit of 10 that you can see on the front end, or whatever that may be. Or you could do after this, you could like save your results. Say you have a profile, right? You could do something like mem0. You could add a different, you could add a different way of storing memory, so it has the preferences of what you like. Say you always searching something related to history. Well, then maybe you can populate the suggestions on the front end based on, after you do this enough times, it can get that from mem0, say, hey, after doing this 5 times, what does he like? Now, those are the suggestions in like little pill boxes on the front end. It can update those to that. There's so much more that you can do. I'm setting this up so that you have a complete flow, and you can just add more to this if you want to. You don't have to, but this is just how I'm doing it to show you how to integrate everything together. Now, let's go ahead and run this. So I'm back up here. So I have the front end on the right. I have the back end. I mentioned about this deprecation. That's happened in a recent update with CrewAI. I think it's something with Light LLM, right? Light LLM is what's used in the back end of CrewAI. So let's go ahead and go back to our front end. We are here. Let me refresh this. We're going to test this out. So let's just say I want to put in, in these suggestion buttons here, let's just say green. This should send green to the back end as a text, and it does. So it's going to do the text search, and you see we have the Green Mile, Green Book, Hulk, Shrek, and I guess this gremlin here is kind of green, or the GRE in green, I don't know, whatever. That was what it found was close enough. Now if we do Feel Good, whatever that means, let's see what movies that gives. Good Will Hunting, The Flintstones, Ratatouille, Terminator 3. Wow, they're quite the mix. So let's actually try to add something. Let's type in action and see what that gives. So I just pressed enter. So we get Beauty and the Beast, Incredibles, Last Action Hero, Jingle All the Way, Shazam. I mean, a couple of these I can really see, but now let's add an image. I want to add the image of, I have a few here. I have a car race image. Okay, so this is just a car. And again, because both of these are populated, it's going to just use the image. It's going to kind of overwrite the text. So if we send this image to the backend, it should come back and give us stuff related to cars. Hopefully it didn't fail. It looks like maybe something happened. Nope. Oh, nope. It did it as soon as I went back away. But okay, awesome. So we got Tokyo, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, basically 3 definitely car movies. Dark Knight has a Batmobile, Spider-Man, whatever. All right, maybe because, you know what? It may be because of the colors. See this red, blue, and white. It could be the colors of the image. That's why. It could be because of that. All right, so let's try something else. What do I don't know. Say comedy. What's it gonna do for comedy? Let's get rid of this and then search for this. Let's just do a couple more examples to make sure that this is working. So it's saying there's only one comedy, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I kind of went through that last little bit, but the CrewAI part was just creating the flow, and we already had the functions for Weaviate, so we just kind of put them inside of a simple function within Crew. The hardest part, again, is connecting Flask backend with the front end. We got that done. Then Weaviate is a little bit of a learning curve. Like I said, I already went through that, but I had the code here. Really, all you need is once you have the Docker running, you just copy the YAML file they have, type in Docker Compose on your terminal. It's done. Just give it a little bit. It's done. And then you have to input the data. I had the functions for you to do that. I explained, if you tried it once, like you created the collection and then something happened with the data, then what you need to do is you comment out the collections. That can also be done a little bit better, but that's just a setup, right? That's just a setup Python file to get all the data ready. There are other ways that you could do that, right? Any data source that you want. But this is pretty cool. We have a full movie recommendations, full stack application working. Okay, congratulations. You just created your first full stack application. Maybe you've done a lot of these, but maybe Weaviate or one of these pieces of software tied together have been the first time you've used them. Again, I have my school link in the description down below where we go through everything that's AI related, whether it's no code or you want to master CrewAI, and we create AI automations with these things, and I'm updating it every week. I have a full 2-hour course on CrewAI right here and how to build agents. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next video.